My cheating wife lost it when I refused to sign the birth certificate for the child from her affair. I've been married to my 33-year-old wife for 7 years and we don't have any children. 2 years ago she started a new job and excelled at it. At first she mentioned a coworker she didn't like calling him an a-hole, but over time she softened and stopped talking about him much. I didn't see any reason to worry. Despite our imperfect marriage, I've always trusted her and we generally got along well. About a month ago, I started noticing changes. She started texting more often, keeping her phone close to her at all times. Her evenings and weekends suddenly became busier. She became distant and avoided any affection. She also started lying about strange things. The last lie happened when she was packing for a vacation. The final lie came when she packed for a business trip and brought a much more revealing swimsuit than she had ever worn before. When I questioned her, she claimed she had ordered it online, which was untrue, and decided it was inappropriate for a business trip to Florida, yet she took it on the trip while she was gone. I decided to investigate throughout our relationship. I had never snooped through my wife's belongings, but I was tired of the constant deception. I discovered in her work bag a caricature-like drawing of her on hotel paper and next to her drawing of her on hotel stationery, and next to it was a post-it note. A review of our bank statements revealed numerous instances where she claimed to be at work, but was actually dining at various restaurants in the city. This prompted me to dig deep. As a professional private investigator, I have no qualms about invading privacy when faced with reasonable suspicion. In her car, which is titled in my name in our state, when she returned from the trip, she mentioned going to a coffee shop and running errands on a Sunday, yet her car was nowhere near a Chipotle, but she returned home with a Chipotle cup, confirming that she had eaten there. Then, the following Tuesday, she said she was attending a company dinner and working late. The GPS data showed that she left work at 3:20 p.m. The next day, she said that she was attending a company dinner and working late, 20 p.m. The big problem came the next Saturday when we were supposed to watch my niece play tennis at 8 o'clock. She said she wanted to drive alone so she could leave the tennis court and go to work at a coffee shop after the match. She said she was going to X coffee shop and talked a bit about why she wanted to go there. I said have a good day and went to my car using the GPS. I saw she went straight to a Comfort in a motel. I got to the motel. She was not there. I got to the Comfort Inn and waited in a nearby parking lot until I could be sure she was inside and not in her car. I called her from the lobby and asked her how X coffee shop was. She said it was good and asked why I wanted to know. I just said come down so we can talk. When she comes down she said it is not. When she came down she said it's not what you think. He has to do this because he's been caught with other girls before. I asked what she meant, and she said he always works in hotel rooms. She said they didn't do anything physical, and that's when I told her to get out of my car. I left and she called me 50 times. I finally answered and said if she tells even one lie I'm hanging up. She admitted they kissed once about 5 months ago, but said it was a mistake and meant nothing. She kept saying they just work. I asked how many times she met him in hotels, and she said about 10 in the last 9 months. Then I asked what she was doing that Tuesday and she got defensive. She said she was at work all day until a work dinner. I told her I thought she was lying and hung up. She came to our house while I was loading my stuff and my dog into my car. She stayed in the driveway refusing to move. Until we talked, she cried and said she was sorry, really upset that day I left, and it has been a month since then. We have met a few times for her to explain things, but when I ask my questions she gets upset, defensive, and says answering is not good for us. She has lied about little things, and when I call her out she says I am traitorous. She says I'm setting her up. She's adamant it wasn't a romantic thing. She claimed they were just good friends, and he was helping her with her job. Their conversations got inappropriate, discussing our problems. She confessed to texting him and deleting the texts, saying they weren't romantic, but could be seen as flirting. She said he was helping her with her depression and work. I want to trust her, maybe because I love her, or I'm afraid of the truth. I'm stuck trying to find the truth, but even if I find it, I don't see how I can get past what I already know. Am I losing her? Update: we're a month after D-Day. I spoke to her last night. Here's the scoop. I inquired about her conversations with the man over the past 4 weeks. She mentioned that he has no idea about my confrontation at the D-Day hotel. She hasn't discussed it with him, considering it a marital issue that has nothing to do with him. I asked about cutting off non-work conversations with him. Work conversations with him, she claimed she's scaling back. This phrase set me off. She believes she needs to scale back instead of going no contact because he's unaware I caught her. She then fibbed about a trivial detail. I called her out, absolutely sure she was lying. She vehemently denied it. Never yielding, I let it go, adding it to the pile of unresolved problems. After she claimed to have stopped socializing with the other man, I hid a dictaphone in my house and left last night. I checked the tape and found that my wife and this man had talked for well over an hour in at least 2 calls. They discussed the status of our marriage, something she claimed he didn't know about. They chatted about using a secret phone app to avoid detection. She insulted me for being late for breakfast. They talked and laughed. Breakfast? They talked and laughed about numerous topics I haven't heard my wife mention since we started dating. I confronted her. She admitted to some, denied the rest. I'm beyond caring. I'm meeting with a divorce lawyer this morning. Over the past fortnight, I've maintained no communication with my spouse. Recently, she reached out via text seeking a conversation. I responded stating my condition for discussion. She would have to come clean about everything before I would engage. She claimed awareness of a wiretap on her phone that didn't exist, but I let her believe it and claimed I already knew everything. I insisted on hearing the truth directly from her. Finally, she relented, agreed to sit down to divulge everything. When she visited, she confessed that her involvement with another man was indeed intimate, spanning the last 6 months. She admitted to booking a hotel room the day before our anniversary for their rendezvous. She also confirmed ongoing communication with him after the discovery, claiming that he helped her deal with my inquiries. She claimed that the affair had ended for good and expressed a desire to mend our marriage. This confession unfolded 6 painful weeks after I caught her in the hotel. Although she claims she always intended to come clean in order to minimize the pain for both of us, the damage done during those 6 weeks seems insurmountable. Update: we eventually divorced. I took my time before making this decision, and in retrospect, I wish I hadn't waited so long. My ex-wife wanted to stay together, although her reasons were unclear to me, but her constant lies and gaslighting made reconciliation impossible. Going through the divorce was the most difficult experience of my life. During my marriage, I was fully committed. I wasn't perfect, but I loved my wife with all my heart, and I had visions of a life together. A lifetime together. I was willing to do anything to make her happy, and I believe I made significant efforts on several occasions. Now that I've distanced myself from that relationship, I can see it for what it really was, a narcissistic person draining the energy and goodness out of someone who cared. She undermined my profession, my personality, and my appearance. However, since the divorce, my business has flourished and I've been able to date women I once thought were out of my league. I've had a few wonderful relationships with amazing women. These relationships ended amicably due to compatibility issues, but they helped me see what a terrible partner my ex-wife really was. I have no contact with my ex and rarely think about her. The divorce became contentious because she thought I was getting too much of the money, even though I accepted less than 50% to ensure a smoother process without disrupting businesses and retirements. It's amazing that she could cheat on someone and then complain about the amount of money they take, even if it's less than 50%. Taking, even if it is less than half, reinforced my belief that I made the right decision and needed to distance myself from this toxic situation as quickly as possible. I lost some friends during the divorce, but I don't mind. Most of them were on my side and I have no concern for those who weren't. They made it easy for me to let them go. The hardest part was losing my in-laws because I really cared about them. I sent enough correspondence to my ex-wife's affair partner's wife to make it clear what had happened, and while she never responded, I respect her decision. For anyone going through this nightmare. Here's some advice: separate yourself from the situation, think clearly without being manipulated, seek professional help, surround yourself with friends and family, make healthy choices, stay active, limit substance use, and prioritize self-care. There were incredibly dark days after discovering the affair, but after the initial heartache, this period was the best time of my life. I find genuine happiness every day. If you're in a similar situation and need advice from someone who's been there. If you need advice from someone who's been through it, feel free to reach out. I'm here to help. Alright, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Stay tuned and let's dive into story 2. About a month ago, I discovered that both of my children were the results of affairs my soon-to-be ex-wife had been harboring. When my son was born 6 years ago, I experienced immense happiness. I had married my best friend, we had a child together and everything seemed perfect. But as he grew older, I began to have doubts about his parentage. He did not resemble me, and the more he grew, the more obvious it became that he looked very different from what I would expect my child to look like. I did not want to let mere appearances drive my suspicions, as I am not a petty or paranoid person. It was my wife's behavior that set off alarm bells whenever she went out. Her whereabouts didn't match her claims. She had unexplained gaps in her schedule. She refused to let me interact with anyone from her workplace, and a close friend of hers accused her of flirting with her significant other at the time. The lies she spun began to catch up with her, especially after our son was born. Yet, despite her deceitful nature, I still loved her, foolish as it may sound. Whenever one of her lies was exposed, she would reassure me of her love for me. She had managed to convince me that despite her deceitfulness, she still loved me. Last year, she became pregnant again, and I clung to a glimmer of hope that the child might be mine. But when our daughter was born, it was obvious that she was biracial. I refused to sign the birth certificate, and the subsequent paternity test I requested confirmed what I had suspected all along. Neither of them shared my biological connection. The day I received those test results was the day I filed for divorce from my philandering spouse and walked away. Despite my fears, I had been the best father I could be to him, pouring all my love and effort into being the father he deserved. But now when I see him, I am overcome with disgust, disgusted with my unfaithful wife, disgusted with my own lack of trust in my instincts, and disgusted that the last 6 years of my life have come to nothing. My ex has repeatedly tried to manipulate me into reconciling by using him as a bargaining chip. She has him call me at odd hours of the night crying and begging for his daddy to return the day I packed my belongings to move out. She paraded him in the room to demonstrate the damage I have caused both online and offline. Every time he is mentioned, I am criticized and condemned despite the fact that I am not biologically related to the boy. I am his father. Sadly, I have now come to realize that for most people my own feelings have no meaning. My parents are my only support throughout this ordeal, while my own siblings brand me a reprehensible person for leaving a child in such a manly manner. My sense of betrayal and grief is disregarded because a child is involved. I understand it's not his fault. I know the man he called his father his whole life just walked away. But why am I expected to be a man? Why should I pretend everything is fine and suppress my disdain for this whole situation? Why should I put my own life and feelings aside? I was never really the boy's father, even though I loved him as one. Though I loved him as one, and still do, I would come to resent and despise him if I were forced to continue playing that role. I would loathe myself for not standing up and reclaiming my own life. He is not my child, and though it is not his fault, he is no longer my responsibility. I suppose sharing my personal issues has accomplished something. Nonetheless, I have noticed a few common questions, so I will address them here. 1. Your son is aware of the truth behind my departure. I had a conversation with him, explaining that I am not his biological father, and that his mother deceived me, and that I was not his father. I made it clear that I harbor no ill feelings toward WS, that he bears no responsibility for this situation, and that I will continue to hold him in high esteem. 2. Some have suggested that I never really cared for him or that I was always looking for a way out. It is difficult to convey emotion in a text post like this, especially when it is overshadowed by strong animosity toward your unfaithful spouse. You are free to form your own opinion. 3. I have legal representation and will not be obligated to pay child support or alimony. Finally, for those of you who have been unfaithful to me, I will not be obligated to pay child support or alimony. Finally, for those who suggest that I should remain in her life and continue as his father, that is not realistically feasible. I have no animosity toward him, but I have been deceived, lied to, and exploited by a selfish and deceitful individual who has now entangled her children in her web. He is an innocent victim of her actions and bears no blame, but that doesn't change the harsh reality we face. I don't hate him. I feel deep sadness when I think about his situation, but when I look at him, all I see is 6 years of deception. I see 6 years of deception, 6 years of being taken advantage of, and 6 long years of accumulated doubt and frustration with a woman who used me. I can't just put aside my resentment and try to be a part of his life, because the life I lived with him was nothing more than a facade created by his mother. This is the harsh reality I have to deal with, and I can't in good conscience subject myself or him to any more of it. I've noticed numerous armchair lawyers in the comments suggesting that this post is fake for the reasons I mentioned earlier. I will not disclose my current state of residence, but I am currently in the process of legally challenging paternity, known as disestablishment of paternity. This will not silence the 90% of you who think Google makes you a legal expert, but at least I made an effort to edit. This will be my last edit before I move on from this little distraction I have created for myself first. I want to thank everyone for their kind words, whether in the comments, DMs, or chat. You have brightened my day, which hasn't happened in a while. I wish I could respond to each of you. But I can't thank you enough. Second, I've noticed that many people have vehemently criticized the words I used to describe my soon-to-be ex. I want to make it clear that I am currently in one of the darkest periods of my life. All I feel is intense anger towards the woman who destroyed my life. Inappropriate is the word I chose to describe her, demeaning and offensive. Yes, I will admit that, but I will not apologize for it. What I have written here today reflects the harsh reality I am facing right now. It is an unfiltered outpouring of emotion. Coming from a flawed man, I don't want to make people hate women or send a misogynistic message that women are terrible. That's not my goal here, and that's not the message of this post. I understand why people take issue with the word I used, and I accept that as a valid criticism of my actions today. I came here today to find an outlet for the situation I'm in, to vent, to grieve, and to deal with the complex and intense emotions that have been consuming me for the past month, a place where I could speak my mind freely. And you know what I accomplished today? It was amazing. Well, thanks to all of you. Here is a third story. We used to be together when we were both 22, right after college. At first I was more of a friend to her until I asked her out. When we both ended up working in the same city, we dated for 9 months, and during that time I think she was the one for me, but suddenly she became distant for no apparent reason. She never wanted anything serious back then, with thoughts of getting her master's degree in the US. On the other hand, I wanted a serious relationship, but she saw it as neediness, and felt I should be grateful. She was quite popular in college and very attractive, which made me feel insecure because at that time I was working on building my own confidence and believed that I was becoming a desirable partner. We kept in touch through mutual friends. From what I observed, between the ages of 23 and 27 she dated several men. When she was 27 to 28, I heard that her parents tried to set up an arranged marriage for her. But none of these prospects worked out. Eventually, she reached out to me, and one thing led to another, and we started dating. And at the beginning she asked me if I was looking for a serious relationship, and I told her that I had never dated without serious intentions, but I also mentioned that I wasn't in a hurry to get married and suggested that if she felt pressured by her parents or for any other reason to get married quickly, she should explore other options. We dated for 6 months, which were honestly some of the best months of my life. Our bed life was fantastic, and she was incredibly accommodating and sweet. She brought up the topic of marriage, but I expressed that I wasn't ready. Many of our friends had gone through divorce, which made me cautious. I wanted to be sure before taking such a big step. She accused me of lying about my intentions, but I showed her messages where I agreed to a serious relationship, just not one that was rushed. She argued that overall we had been dating for over a year, and that she was eager to settle down. After this conversation, things grew distant between us. Although I sent her sweet goodnight texts, she sometimes didn't even respond, and she showed little interest in seeing me. A month passed, and then she told me that I should either marry her or move on, claiming that she could easily find another guy and that I was lucky to have her. Painful for me as it reminded me of past experiences. I consider myself a modest person, but I also believe that I have become an attractive catch despite my fondness for her. I made it clear that I would not be pressured into marriage, so we decided to end our relationship. After another month, she started texting me again, and we rekindled our relationship. It has been 3 months now, and she has returned to her sweet self. She admitted that it was wrong of her to claim that she could easily find someone. Elson said that I am the right one for her. She expressed her desire for marriage as soon as I am ready and emphasized that her parents are pushing her to get married, but she is willing to give me time. However, I feel overwhelmed by the idea of marriage at the moment and concerned about her ability to switch between being sweet and distant so abruptly. Is she being sweet just to convince me to marry her? I have a nagging feeling that this might not work out well in the long run, and it seems like marriage is becoming more of a force than a natural thing. Update: the day after I posted my initial message, the thoughtful comments from people made me realize that I needed to end the relationship, a realization I probably should have reached without posting. Last Saturday was pretty chaotic, and I'm really grateful for the advice I received. Because of the advice I received, I decided to break up with her, and now I feel like it was the obvious choice. I called her in the morning and explained that I could not handle the abrupt shifts between being cold and distant. I also told her that she should find someone who fits her timeline and that I did not want to be pressured into marriage. I expressed that it hurt me when she thought she was better than me and out of my league. I want someone who treats me as an equal. I mentioned that I wanted to end things on good terms and wished her well. Her response was anger. She accused me of never loving her and targeted some of my insecurities, which I prefer not to share, even anonymously. The conversation got heated, and although I tried to calm her down and end things amicably, she insisted that I was wasting her time and not a real man, leading to a bitter ending. Then she sends me a text message expressing her desire to end things on better terms. She suggests that she come over so that we can have a productive conversation about our relationship. When I see her in person, she looks more attractive than ever. We decide to have an open exchange of criticism. I acknowledge her criticism about prioritizing work too much. I also share with her how her comment about being able to find someone better hurt me. I emphasize that such thoughts hurt me. She admits her mistake and proceeds to shower me with compliments, saying that I am the best guy she has ever dated. She asks if there is anything she can do to fix things, and I reply that this relationship is beyond repair, but I am glad we did not leave things on a sour note. I make it clear that nothing will change my decision to end it. Surprisingly, she then tries to initiate an intimate encounter, something she had always rejected before. Finding it disgusting, I find it even more pleasurable than our previous lovemaking. Afterwards, she suggests I take until the next day to decide if it is really over and assures me that she will do whatever it takes to make amends. I firmly state that it is over and I cannot continue in a relationship where I have to threaten to end it. She begins to cry and tells me that I was always the one for her, the one she would end up with. She reveals that some of her friends had shown interest in me over the years, but she kept it a secret because she wanted me in the end. Despite her persistent pleas for over an hour, I stand my ground and she finally accepts reality and leaves. Later, I receive a screenshot from a friend of hers of an Instagram story she posted for her friends to see. An Instagram story she posted for her close friends. I was on that list earlier in the week. But apparently not anymore. It's a special green list where you only share content with a select group of followers. The story essentially criticizes me for wasting her time. Among other things, I decide to send her one last message before I block her. I express my hope that everything is going well in her life and that we can go our separate ways. I feel liberated and look forward to finding a woman who will treat me with kindness and love me for who I am. Here's a fourth story. It all started out as a typical Wednesday. I finished work and went over to my girlfriend's house to hang out after dinner. We've been in a relationship for about a year and a half. I wasn't thrilled about going to this other girl's house and suggested that we just spend some time at our best friend's house and then go home since I had to work in the morning. Plus, I think it's more fun to hang out with her best friend's boyfriend while they do their thing. So we went to her best friend's house where I was supposed to pick her up to go out for dinner. I was supposed to pick her up to go to the other girl's house, but when we got there she suggested we stay at her best friend's house as I had originally suggested. I thought that was perfect and we hung out there for about an hour. I had a beer with her boyfriend because he offered it to me and I accepted to be polite. Generally, I try not to drink or do anything during the week, and if it were up to me I would be in bed by 11 o'clock p.m. Weekends are a different story when I'm not working anyway. The girls started doing vodka shots and got pretty drunk. At this point her friend mentioned that she wanted to leave and go somewhere else. I suggested that it was getting late and I wanted to go home soon so we should stay here. She didn't argue. She didn't agree, but the idea stuck in my friend's head and now she was determined to go somewhere else. She called the girl whose house we were supposed to visit and told her we were coming over for a while. First I said no, we shouldn't go there, and I had to go to bed. It was almost 11 o'clock p.m. By then my girlfriend was insistent, so I foolishly decided to compromise. I said fine, we'll go, but only until 12 and then we're leaving. So we went to this place and it was just as I expected, a shabby messy apartment with nowhere to sit and a bunch of random people I'd rather not be associated with. It was almost 11:30 at this point and I thought, okay, it's not too long, I'll stick it out. The girls were doing their own thing, socializing with these other girls and continuing to drink. They ended up finishing a bottle of vodka and all these girls were getting very drunk. When 12 rolled around I went to get my girlfriend and told her it was time to go, but she pretty much ignored me and kept doing what she was doing, almost like a kid who doesn't want to leave the playground. I kept reminding her every few minutes, saying it's time to go, let's go, but to no avail. So here I am trying to get these two drunk girls to leave this place so I can go home, and this is when things start to take a strange turn. I am not exactly sure how it started, but suddenly my girlfriend, her boyfriend, and these two other girls all go into the bedroom and close the door. I heard them mention something about a foursome. I am standing outside the room in the living room with some other guys, and we are all thinking, what on earth is going on in there? I did not want to just barge into the room to get my girlfriend, as this is in my house and I have no idea what these girls might be up to. I have no idea what these girls might be up to in there. I text my girlfriend, but get no reply. A few minutes pass, and I could hear them talking to each other inside, so I wasn't too concerned at that point. At some point one of the girls comes out of the room and I approach the door. I go in and get my girlfriend and express my discomfort about what is happening. This startled the other two girls and put an end to this supposed foursome. I tell my girlfriend again to let go. She agrees and asks me to leave the room so she and her friend can get dressed and then we will leave. I wait a few minutes, but they are still not out. I go to the door, open it, and there she is under the blankets on this unclean bed getting DJ'd by her best friend. I go in and say something like, that's disgusting, what are you doing? Of course they stop immediately, and at this point I am like, Immediately they stop, and at this point I'm shaking with shock. I tell her I'm leaving, putting on my shoes, and I'm just not sure what to do. Finally I decide whatever, I'm going to take these drunk idiots home. So I go back and tell them to get their stuff so we can leave this bizarre place. Her friend apologizes to me, and I'm at a loss for words. I basically remain silent and drop her friend off. Before taking my girlfriend home, when we get home I try to talk to my girlfriend for a while, but it is almost pointless as she is heavily intoxicated at this point. However, she realizes that she has done something wrong. At first she tries to apologize, claiming that I do not pay enough attention to her and do not engage in a certain activity that she enjoys. We argue for a while and I think I managed to get some points across, and then we go to bed the next day. I explained everything to her. She and her friend thought that I would be okay with it because they are both girls. She also mentioned that it was her friend who initiated it, and she sort of went along with it and found it very strange. I explained that I am upset and that it feels like she cheated on me. While I would probably be more upset if it was another guy, it still doesn't sit well with me now. She feels very guilty about it. After work things are a bit awkward between us, and she is acting very different from her usual self. I am quite unsure how to handle this situation. I understand that it's considered cheating whether it's with a guy or a girl. I also realized that if I hadn't walked into that room, I might never have found out about it. I told my friend that I understand that she might have thought it was okay because it was another girl, but I feel very uncomfortable about it. I made it clear that if something like this happened again, I would end the relationship. Do you think I'm being too forgiving in this situation?